And we're live. All right. Welcome, everybody. This is the Reality Czars podcast, and I'm your host, Nate. And Tony's going to join us in a minute, and we have Moral Bob on. Bob, you want to tell everybody who you are and where they can find you?
Yeah, man. You can find my podcast, Hidden in Plain Sight, on all your podcatchers. I'm on Instagram at The Moral Bob. I'm on Facebook at Moral Bob, but I'm currently under 2 consecutive 30-day bans, so I'm not going to be back on for like 54 days. And that's about it. I'm not allowed anywhere else. So,
all right, man. So I heard you on, who's the guy that I heard you on? I heard you on somebody's podcast a while ago, and you guys were discussing flat Earth. And I got to be honest with you, whenever flat Earth is brought up, I would always tune out. Like, I didn't know anything about it really. I had looked into it, and every other person that I had listened to wasn't very convincing or sounded kind of like a nut. And I heard you on, man, who the fuck's podcast was that? I want to give them a fucking shout out. But anyways, I heard you on there. He wasn't very nice to you.
Was it William Ramsey?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not too worried about William Ramsey.
He's an interesting cat, man. I actually do want to talk to him. He just wrote that book about Saturn, and I've been like, dude, I'm obsessed with that shit. I really want to get down with that, so I'm going to reach out to him one of these points. But I heard you on his show, and dude, I had a hard time refuting anything you said, and I was like, man, you gave the best case for flat Earth that I'd heard.
Well, thanks, man. That's exactly what I want it to be. I want it to be irrefutable. I want it to be so irrefutable that when people hear it, they go, "Wait!"
Yep, that's what happened to me, dude.
Fuck, he's right.
Then I heard you to my homie show. Shout out to Adam from Deborah Gets Red Pilled. I heard you talking to Deborah, and yeah, man. So I hit you up. I saw that you were on fucking Telegram, and I hit you up, and so here you are. And
thanks for having me, dude.
Absolutely, brother. So even if you don't convince me today, which you might, I'm already halfway there. I want to, dude, for my audience, I don't know how many of these guys are flat earthers or not. Dude, make the case.
It's really easy, man. Like I have been able to isolate a single thing that proves we live on a flat plane. Flat Earth Dave is awesome. He's got a brilliant presentation, but it just goes over people's heads. Like you said, when I first heard Flat Earth, I was the same way. I was just like, I was agnostic to it, but I was just like, whatever, who cares, right? And then I heard Flat Earth Dave, and he made me start questioning some things. And the same with mud flood stuff. First time I heard mud flood stuff, I was like, space lasers from Mars, seriously? Like, I can't with this shit. And then I heard somebody that was actually, credible and had a good argument, and so I started looking into it and went down that rabbit hole. But the best way to do it is to present it with a single thing that it can't be questioned scientifically, mathematically, or anything. So all I tell people is everything is parallel. Everything shares the same level.
Starting here. Right. So Tony just jumped on. Tony, we're just starting here. Moral Bob is about to fucking red pill us.
All right.
You ready, buddy?
Yeah, brother. So yeah, man. What's up, Tony? I'm Bob.
How you doing, man? Round pilling us.
Flat pilling you.
Flat pilling us.
Flat pilling you. Yeah, it's really simple, man. Everything's parallel. Everything shares the same level. So when you look across a city, when you look around, if you're up on like an elevated plane and you look around and you see buildings and water towers and cell phone towers, they're all parallel. You can look at them all and go, yep, those are parallel. And it's game over, man, because the curve over just 10 miles should be observable. Like, you should be able to see it, and a ball curves in all directions. So you should be able to see it at just like a 10-mile stretch of the horizon. You should see a curve, and you don't. It's flat as shit. Like, it's that simple. I mean, I could get into a bunch of shit that doesn't make sense, like stars never change, and if tilt during the winter is what gave us cold, then it would be freezing every night. And I can go deep on a lot of different shit, but you don't have to. Like, I've just gotten to that one thing that just everything is measurably and observably parallel. And I mean, there is no physical evidence that we're spinning or moving. There is.
Yeah. So as far as like the flat Earth goes, I'm still agnostic about it, but that is really fucking fascinating. And I am going to have to, the next time I go to Portland, it's probably tomorrow, I'll fucking take a look.
Just look around. Just look. That's all you got to do, man.
What I do know for sure is that everything we ever hear come out of fucking NASA's mouth is a lie.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the big thing for me. It was like, whenever I heard a flat earther talk, they could point out a million fucking holes in the mainstream narrative. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the flat earther is correct, but we are definitely being lied to.
Sure. And I'm a big fan of simulation theory, and somebody made a point on a podcast the other day. They said, look, if we are in a simulation, then the easiest algorithm to recreate would be a flat plane. If you're in a simulation, why go through the code writing of creating a sphere when you can just have it be a flat plane? And I was like, dude, that's a Brad point that I can just add into, simulation theory.
That's true, man. So I am curious, because I'll look at the moon or something like that, and I can tell that it's round. Why are we flat and the moon is round?
Well, looking up,
I'm going to be asking you some real fucking basic questions.
I'm okay with basic questions.
Yeah, I need to be talked to like I'm a toddler.
You're at least giving me observational questions, which is fine. I mean, I've heard these a lot, but some people haven't. So
this is probably going to be like a libertarian being asked, but who would pay for the roads?
Right.
So
so looking up to describe the shape of what you're standing on is kind of a little nonsensical, not to be insulting. But looking up and going, well, that's round, so this has to be round. It doesn't necessarily hold water, right? Like, we don't do that with any other object. We don't look at something else to tell you what this other object is. Like,
sure, but
never
like
happens.
the other things that we observe in the sky are round. Like,
well, they're circular.
The sun, yeah, right. Okay,
they're circular.
They're circular.
Are they balls of? I think they're balls of energy, and I do think they're spherical. But from our perspective, we don't know that they're spherical. Have you ever seen the backside of the moon or the other side of the sun? No. So how do you know it's there? You don't. So I try to stay into observable reality with this stuff, right? Because anybody can appeal to authority and be like, well, NASA said that blah blah blah, or they said that there's a picture of the Earth from the moon or whatever. So I try to stay just in observable, provable reality, shit that's provable and repeatable. And so we don't know what the moon is. We don't know if it's flat or round or hollow or egg shaped or a fucking spaceship with a cloak on it. Like, we don't fucking know. It's just an object in the sky that casts light and goes through phases. And some say that it's actually a reflection of the flat Earth in some way. And there's some maps that you can hold up to the dark spots of it, and it kind of lines up. But I'm not really there yet. But it's interesting. So, I don't know what the moon is. I mean, I think it could be hollow. I think it could be a man-made creation, possibly. So who knows? It being round, it being a sphere, doesn't prove anything. It could just be a sphere in our sky under the firmament that gives us light during the night, like the Bible says, because the Bible says that God created a light for the day and a lesser light for night, so we could see at night. And the lesser light that was created could just be the moon, and it's there for phases because the sky's a clock, right? So the sun keeps track of our days, the moon keeps track of the weeks, and the stars keep track of the months. And it's repeatable and predictable. Like, you can predict this out how it goes, and you can actually predict what the stars, sun, and moon are going to be doing in 10 years. And in 10 years, it will be exactly what you predicted, because it just repeats on a cycle, and it has forever, which completely disproves the expanding universe theory, because the stars never change, so we're obviously not moving, and there's no measurable spin to us. So all we could logically deduce is that the stars and the celestial beings above us are spinning. What they are, how they got there, who put them there, and why they're there, who fucking knows?
Interesting. So, Morabab, tell me a little bit about your. So, I want to know a little bit about your background. Are you religious, spiritual? Tell me about your politics. Like, who is Morabab?
I started out. I was raised kind of Methodist Christian, going to church all the time. Went to church camps in the summer and shit like that. And then I got old enough that, Discovery had kind of come about, and there were, history shows and whatnot on Discovery, and I was in my early teens. It was like the early 90s, and I'm watching shit like Ancient Aliens and other shit about pyramids and whatnot, and I'm reading books, and I'm going, you know what? This stuff doesn't really make sense. It doesn't line up with what I've been told in church, and I'm just not falling for this shit anymore. And so I kind of became agnostic. And then as my learning continued, I became an atheist for a while. It's just like, man, there's no fucking God. That's bullshit. And I didn't necessarily believe the Big Bang either. So I was in this really weird place of, I don't know. But I was like, but there's for sure not a fucking God, because, horrible shit happens and whatever. So, but then recently, just in the past few years, through research and not being able to explain some things, like the sky being a fucking clock, like, how did that just happen? So something had to create it. And I, doing research about the Sumerian cuneiform tablets and the Anunnaki, I was like, okay, so there are gods, but it's plural. And, that can also just be a name for something we don't understand. It could possibly just be a technology we don't understand. Maybe not necessarily a higher being, but they just have technology we don't understand. So we call them gods. But so then I kind of became a polytheist. And I was just kind of happy there and didn't think it was that big of a deal. There weren't a ton of podcasts. So I listened mostly to political podcasts for a really long time. And then I was like, well, I can do a fucking political podcast. I can be just as good as these guys. And I bet I could have a little bit more interesting to say, because I see things a little different than these mainstream dudes. So I started my podcast. It was called Conversations About Freedom, and it was a political podcast. And then just through my journey, I just got away from that, found out everything was horseshit, and changed the name of my podcast to Hidden in Plain Sight, because everything is right fucking there, man. Everything is right in front of us. It's literally in front of our faces all day, every single day. They tell us everything. And I had just gone down too many rabbit holes, and now I really don't even care about politics. Like, fuck that shit. It's just theater. It's meant to distract and divide. So I don't even really pay attention to it, except to just kind of know what's coming.
I feel that, man.
So, and like I said, I'm a family man. I got 4 kids and an amazing wife, and we do a not a podcast, but we do some videos on Instagram and shit about marriage. And that's pretty much me, man. I'm trying to get the fuck out of the city. I'm trying to homestead and get completely off the grid and independent. And one of these days, new thing I'm working on, so everybody stay tuned, is I'm working on getting together kind of a tutorial on how to make yourself a legal sovereign citizen, kind of like the Amish, where you'd sever all ties with the American government and you no longer be beholden to their authority. So stay tuned for that.
Have you done that yourself yet, or
not yet? No, I'm in the works. I'm getting connected with people that have done it, and I'm hoping to have it done by the end of this year. And I want to put it in like a PDF or something, just a little instructional thing with resources and steps and contacts if needed. that can get you through the process, how much it's going to cost, like all broken down in one spot. So I can just give it out to everybody and people can take it and become sovereign citizens. And hopefully we can start kind of a fund and help people that can't afford it. If there's a monetary, amount to it, which there will be, to file legal paperwork. So I'd like to also start a fund to help people that want to do it but can't financially. So
that's cool, man. When you get that together, we're gonna have you come back on, because I want to push it, and then I also want to learn from it. So
fuck yeah, dude. And there's a way. So there's the thing about this stupid ass government that we have is that there's loopholes to everything. They build in loopholes for their fucking friends, but the loopholes are there. You just don't know about them. So it's finding those loopholes to be able to get around all of that stuff. And because they don't really have any authority over us as just humans. They have no authority over us. You get a birth certificate, that ties you to the government. You get your social security card, that ties you to the government. The first W-2 you sign, that ties you to the government. Your driver's license ties you to the government. So all of these things that you do, you're engaging in contract with the government. So you have to go through and eliminate all of those ties. And then you're no longer a property of the government, and you can tell them to fuck off.
Do you have any thoughts on why that is? It blows my mind that I think that you're right, but that you can just opt out and they will let you, even though they're doing so much to control us.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow, what is the piece that they need our consent? Like, that's the part that just blows my mind sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know if that's some just inner order that they have in the occult that rules everything. That even if it's manufactured consent, they need consent in some way. But they do. For whatever reason, whether it's their, the God that rules over them, that gave them rules, or whether it's some moral code they have in their occult or whatever, they have to give us choice. They have to. And so once you realize there's a way to remove your consent that you didn't even know you were giving, they have to allow it. They can't stop. They can try to dissuade you and they can try to stop you. But if you get it done, they can't say no.
And they're almost like fucking vampires, man. There's rules to their rule.
I think vampires are an allegory for the controllers of the world. That they just suck people dry and just suck the life out of people, and that's what gives them life. I think it's just an allegory. The vampires are just the people that control the world.
Yeah, they're always portrayed aristocratically.
Right. Yeah.
And super gay.
Yeah.
Not always, but yeah. I'm thinking of Interview with a Vampires right now.
Yeah, I mean, the ones from what
kind
was
of
that?
Sexy, kind of gay.
What was the one that the chicks all loved that was like
Twilight, when they're all sparkly?
Those were pretty gay too. So maybe vampires
are just
a little gay.
What were their names? There's are you team what's his name or team what's his name? Your team.
Even if I knew, I wouldn't say that I knew. But I don't remember. That was a while ago.
The werewolf guy was way hotter.
Well, it's kind of creepy if this guy is 500 years old and he's going out with some chick from high school.
Yeah.
It's a little weird.
Well, every girl I knew, especially, when I was around that age, they were all reading the Twilight novels and garbage.
Yeah, that's the only reason guys like that stuff. It's just so they can talk to the chicks about it. Dudes aren't really into it. It's just like, wait, what do the girls like? Okay, I need to get into that.
Or you at least need to know like this much about it so that you can.
You got to at least sound like you know what you're talking about. You get the Cliff Notes version, you're fine.
Team Edward, that's the vampire, and I don't remember. Is it the other way around?
No, I think that sounds familiar.
Yeah, Team Edward or Team werewolf asshole. Whatever the fuck his name was. So, Moral Bob, let's talk. I mean, we can talk about whatever, man. I brought you on here to talk about flat Earth, but we can talk like Saturnian cults. We can talk about like, yeah. What
I mean,
what are you into,
it's
man?
it's all relative, and it's all tied together, right? Like, so people ask why the lie, and it's like, well, it's to hide the truth. It's to get you to not believe yourself. It's to appeal to authority, so they can just paint this theater. Because once you're deep enough in the lie, man, they control your entire reality. So, uh, it's a lie for a reason. But I tell people that you can't understand the reason until you see the lie, right? Like, you can't just jump to the reason. But it does seem that it's a Saturn cult that is kind of controlling everything. When you start looking for symbolism and stuff, man, it's freaking everywhere. I blew my wife's mind the other day when I told her Taylor Swift was part of the Illuminati and told her to start paying attention. And Taylor Swift has some black and white checkered fucking dress that she's wearing, and she mentions Saturn in some of her songs, and my wife was like, "What the fuck?"
Yep.
like I told you, I'm sorry. It's like
Hidden in plain sight.
Like you can still like it. That's fine. I still like Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin, even though I know they're full of shit. So it is what it is. It doesn't mean you have to stop listening to it. You just recognize it. But yeah, man, when you start looking, the shit is everywhere.
Go ahead,
so
Tom.
Well, I was just to say, like, part of me does feel like a lot of it is trolling, and I think some of it's real, and it's just hard to tell,
right?
Because it's so easy to get attention, and especially in an attention economy. And if you're Taylor Swift, you know how to get attention. Mm-hmm. You know that if I do this thing with my eye, then all of a sudden I'm going to get a fuckload of downloads and people do. Yeah, exactly.
Illuminati confirmed.
Like, that's just like an okay symbol in some ways, right? Like, it's just this thing that people do.
Right. And it's hard to know, like in our community, there's been some shit about Sam Tripoli going around because he uses a lot of symbolism. And it's like, is he using it because he's part of it, or is he using it as kind of like a spoof? Like he just knows all the symbolism, so he just puts it in there to just kind of fuck around. Like, it's hard to know.
Well, also, what's the symbolism that we don't know, right? Like if you're using symbolism to communicate, then you're not doing stuff that everyone knows. You're not doing a big Illuminati eye. You got some weird thing that no one knows about. And that's, like, I don't know if that is.
Well, when you see a lot of the big name people all doing the same stuff, like there starts to be patterns. And then when you see a new one that somebody's like, I think this is a hand sign, and then you start looking into those, because there's tons of different little hand signs and shit that they all do. And it's just like, man, it's just too much to be a coincidence. It means something, right? And again, it goes to, why are they doing it? Like, they don't have to. They could hide. Like, is it another thing where they have to put it out there for you to see and connect? Because it's more of that freedom of choice that they have to put it out there, because they could easily just not do the symbolism and still have the same control and power. Like, is it ego, or is it some rule that they live by?
Yeah, I tend to think it has to be some sort of rule that they have to live by. But
yeah, I mean, because if they wanted to hide everything, they could. And yet they put symbolism in everything. And is putting the symbolism in everything, is it somehow also manifesting energy? And then they get to feed on that energy.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It could be part of the ritual. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So
yeah,
it's just hard to fucking say, So I just try to notice it and toy around with why it would be there. It's just like they've reset history, but they left little trinkets of shit from the time before. And it's like, were they not able to rewrite everything, or did they leave that shit for a reason?
So, yeah, I mean, I tend to think that whoever's in charge now definitely, I don't think that they have the same type of, either they don't have the same technology or they've lost most of it. Like I tend to think that like whoever the elites are that are in charge now, um, I think that there was probably some giant fall, right? If we're talking about like Atlantis and we're talking about like some type of ancient technologies, some really interesting things, and I think that probably these elites found some of them and they're trying to recreate them and they're using them, and they probably don't even understand most of them.
Yeah. So I think it could be that. It could be that, like maybe when they reset everything, they have to wipe everything out, and then some shit gets missed, but they have to wipe out everybody's technology because technology is working against them. So they even have to delete their technology and build from scratch again. But maybe they don't, and they only reveal they only reset history and delete our technology, and they hold on to theirs, but they only release it as people get ready for it. So what they're in is a constant state of basically painting the path in front of the people so they can get to the point to where they can use the technology, the high-end technology again. But who fucking knows? Again, who really knows?
I'm also fascinated by, like, let's say that they have these crazy wild technologies, and we know they have some fucking nutty shit. We absolutely know they do. Why don't they just do an all-out like conquer and control?
Well, again, I think it has to do with consent and, like them telling us what's going to happen. I think it has to be some kind of choice. They can't just rule by fist. I mean, they can in a way, but it still has to be manufactured consent to the rule of fist,
and possibly they would have so much resistance, and maybe even resistance within themselves, because I mean, how many people can actually rule? And they're going to need,
right?
Yeah,
and I think that maybe what happens is the people just keep pushing for more and more power and more power, and then it starts to crumble. It starts to fall apart. People start waking up to all of it, and then there's a giant revolution, and they just fucking hit the reset button before it gets too hairy, and wipe everything out. Kind of do the little Men in Black flashy thingy, and just wipe everybody and reset shit.
So it feels like the last hard reset was around what, like around the 1900s or so.
I would say 1800s, probably mid 1800s.
Okay,
yeah, because I think the Civil War either was the battle that initiated the reset, or it was completely fabricated to mask the reset. But I don't know. I think I don't trust any history. If it's presented to us in the mainstream way, I think it's bullshit. So I don't believe that the Civil War happened the way that they told us. I don't believe any of the history that happened basically before like the 1930s happened the way they say it did.
To me, dude, I think that that's probably the most tragic thing in my personal life, because I was obsessed with history, dude. I would fucking read history textbooks like nuts when I was a kid. I wanted to know all fucking about it. And then I don't know where I mean, eventually I started getting, history is written by the victors, but like maybe 3-4 years ago is like when I started to see the way they were painting the present and the way they were like, because right now, like January 6th is going to be looked at like an insurrection. Like it's going to be in textbooks. It's going to be what kids learned. They're going to fucking think that this was like this giant uprising, and it's going to, you know what I mean? And so we all know that it was a goddamn joke, and it was a bunch of hillbillies that ran in there and had a good time. They were actually led inside, and they were like touring around. Somebody took a shit on Nancy Pelosi's desk and had a great time. Like it sounded like a ball.
How anybody thinks that was anything memorable or insurrectionist, you've got to be completely fucking insane.
Yeah.
Like, you're not a mentally stable person. If you look at January 6th, if you look at all the facts and you go, oh my God, they tried to overthrow the government. It's white supremacists. like you're a crazy person, like batshit fucking crazy.
Yeah, but people who believe that don't believe it. They're just compliant and whatever it is. Like, I'll believe you whatever you say.
I think a lot of people do believe that it was whatever CNN told them it was.
Well, yeah, I just feel like they believe CNN, but like they didn't examine it. They didn't the thing that they're not doing that. They're not part of the process of like, do I understand this? Do I believe this? It's just like it comes from a credible source, which is CNN. Therefore, I believe it.
To me, that's like that's the most white pilling thing that I've seen in a long time. Is just the mass distrust of the media and their credibility just crumbling, man. I mean, even just in the last couple days, we've seen with Zucker getting kicked out and having these affairs and protecting the Cuomos and doing all this wacky fucking crazy shit, man. They're losing the narrative pretty hard.
I think that's all controlled too, though. Just like this trucker shit in Canada. It's all
Tell me about it.
Controlled.
What part of it?
The trucker stuff, all of it. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that actually think they're doing something, but Elon Musk is creating self-driving semis. And now you're seeing everywhere you go. You'll pull up websites or you go to restaurants or whatever, and it'll say, due to nationwide supply chain issues, blah, 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 blah. It's just being controlled to usher in self-driving freaking semi-trucks that can be controlled by the government. Bob. That's all
I was feeling good about that. You're fucking right.
I felt the same way about the defund the police thing. I'm just like, they're just going to bring in drones.
Yeah.
They're going to bring in drones. They're going to bring in the robot dogs. They're going to bring in a federal police force. They're going to,
And what's funny is all the people that were screaming, defund the police. They're all saying that people's rights should be removed if you're not vaccinated. It's like, really? By who? Like, you want to get rid of the police, so who's gonna be your enforcer, dumbass?
Well, you can also see the narrative shifting on the defund the police right now as we speak, because like they've allowed crime to happen so hard in the inner cities there, and like then you see the DA saying we're not going to prosecute this, that, and the other, and if you fucking steal less than $1,000 at this store, then it's not a big deal. And so then they're creating this outrage, and they're creating like a justified outrage of people that live in these inner cities. They're like, somebody's got to do something about this, and like murder is gone up the fucking, like, it's crazy right now. And that is done on purpose. And they're going to be like, well, this is because you guys want to defund the police. And then you see, what's his name? The Walking Corpse, Jay Bizzle. He was on today talking about like, well, actually, I think that we need police, like we need to stop the defunding of it. And they're going to have the National Guard, or they're going to have something.
Martial law.
Yep.
That's
problem,
the
reaction, solution.
Yeah, the ultimate goal is to eliminate statehood, I think, and to make it, where states no longer have rights, and it's just all ultimately controlled by the federal government. Everything.
Or global.
Global.
Eventually.
Yeah, but the global government will be the government that we currently have presiding over us. It may be a couple other figureheads, but it's going to be all the same actors.
It'll turn into like a world union, kind of like the European Union and
China. Okay.
Well, and I think what's possibly happening is we're about to see a combination of at least a few of the major powers. So the Crown, China, and America are all going to combine soon. And I think that's why China has been buying up land and businesses and shit everywhere. Is they're eventually, I think they're going to get to the point to where they just hand over all of their power to either the United States government or the United Nations or something. And then
so what do you think about this?
Gets control of all of that shit.
Well, I heard something very fucking interesting. I heard it today, I actually think. George Soros called out Xi Jinping, and he was like, he's out of control. He's a fucking global terrorist. He's doing. Well, to me, it's almost, I know, coming out of fucking George Soros, calling anyone a fucking terrorist. But To me, it's almost like maybe he was I mean, he was clearly a manufactured person. He was put in there, and he's been playing ball this whole time. But he might be getting too big for his britches. You know how we eventually took out. You know how we eventually took out like Muammar Gaddafi. We eventually took out Saddam Hussein. Yeah, I think they could be gearing up to get rid of him and maybe putting a new guy in China.
No, that's
you don't think so?
No, that he is our guy. I mean, just look at Joe Biden. Joe Biden has freaking gotten paid by the Chinese government. His son has gotten paid by the Chinese government, man. They're
do you think the Chinese government is bigger than Xi Jinping?
No.
Okay.
No, I think the Chinese government is controlled by the same people that are controlling our government. Like, it's all the same thing. All this divisive shit is all theater. It's all fake.
Yeah.
This division between these big powers, it's all bullshit. It's not real. It's just there so we have an enemy. So we go, oh, well, China's the problem, or Russia's the problem, or, you know, Gaddafi's the problem. Gaddafi just wanted off the fucking petrodollar. So did Saddam. You know, those guys just
That's
wanted.
when they got.
Yeah. And their countries weren't bad, like, comparatively to the regions around them. Dude, Gaddafi's freaking country wasn't bad at all. And now look at it now. Now there's slave trade.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you went from this guy that was supposedly horrible and you replaced it with worse. You know, Iran, we demonize Iran constantly. And I wonder what the deep, dark secret is there, you know, because Iran, before America started fucking around, was a very homogenous place. Or not homogenous, but a multicultural place. And there were
honestly, it still are, man.
Yeah, there was Christians and Muslims hanging out together and doing shit. Like,
it is cool fascinating the places that they demonize in the Middle East, because think about like Syria and think about Iran. They are the most as far as like, if you want to be a Christian, if you want to be a Jew, they're not going to kill you there. I mean, they don't like you. You know, I mean, they clearly are like, you know, Islamists or whatever, but like, they're pretty fucking accepting, dude. They'll let you have a church. They'll let you pray in there. They don't want you converting other Muslims, but like, that's fair. You know, and any other of those countries, if you're a Christian, if you're gay, if you're this, that, and the other, you're getting thrown off a fucking building. They're going to bash your head in with a rock.
I think they always wanted Iraq because of the Fertile Crescent. You know, where supposedly the Garden of Eden was, and there was a bunch of history in that area. You know, if you look at all these wars, man, what they go after is like strategic buildings, like whether or not it's something to do with the power grid, or they go after like museums and libraries and shit. And it's like, why are you going to museums and libraries?
Man, well, because they want that history, man. They want anything that they have. Man, if I could be a fly in the wall, if I could go visit the fucking Vatican and go through their archives and go through it.
I got to do some research on the Vatican. I got to do some deeper dives. Ryan Dean and I tried to have a conversation about the Vatican, and we ended up bouncing all over the place and only talking about the Vatican for about 5 minutes. So,
welcome to my show.
Dude, that's all of these talks, man. It's just the way, you know, when you have a bunch of people that are like us, man, it's hard not to just kind of bounce all over the place.
Fucking A, man. I'm extra ADHD though. Like I legit will have somebody on about a topic, and if I'm not careful, Tony's usually pretty good about keeping me on track, but I can fucking bounce everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I told you about Matt Landman. I had him on, and I had like this list of questions and topics I wanted to talk to him about, and it just completely went a completely different direction. And it ended up being a great podcast because I had people message me. They were like, man, I've never heard Matt Landman talk about flat earth or talk about this or talk about this. And I was like, fuck yeah, man. I kind of wanted the typical Matt Landman episode, but a little more expounded on some things, and we just did something completely off the wall, and it was great.
Yeah, man, and it actually works out pretty well that way. Most of the time I'll get a guest on, and then we'll go on a tangent, and we'll fucking talk about something that, yeah, exactly. We'll get on some topics that people haven't heard from this particular guest. So
that's the way to do it, dude. I got Flat Earth Dave on my show specifically to talk about 9/11. a while back, because he's awesome on 9/11. Dude, that guy knows his shit when it comes to 9/11, because he was a deep rabbit hole diver well before he became Flat Earth Dave. And so he's got extensive knowledge. You can talk to him about the Anunnaki and ancient giants and, all sorts of shit. Like, Dave's cool as fuck.
That's dope, man. I'm probably gonna have to reach out to him too. Yeah, we're just having fun, man. We started this podcast a little less than a year ago, and we've had some really interesting guests on, and we're just having fun.
It's the way to do it, man. Fuck it. Why be serious about shit? Like, you gotta, well, the thing about podcasting is you have to keep it interesting or you're gonna fizzle out. You gotta think about not only what your first 10 podcasts are gonna be about, but what, episode 200 is gonna be about. And if you don't keep it interesting, then you're gonna run out of shit to talk about. and then what do? Then you're circling back around and you get dull and your numbers drop, and then why are you doing it?
Well, it has been nice and terrible. The elite have been making just reality interesting, so there's never a fucking dull topic.
No, there's plenty of shit to talk about.
Yeah, man. You gotta be careful though not to fall into the trap of just reacting to it too, though. Because so much stuff is like you're watching something and listening or whatever, and it's like, yeah, I get it. Like, it's all fucked up, and it just becomes like echo chamber shit, and
it gets on repeat. Like, I kind of, like, I have to take breaks, right? Like, I don't ever listen to the news. I listen to podcasts constantly when I'm working, generally, and I'm on an extended hiatus from podcasts at the moment. Like, it just got to where it was just too much information all the time, and I like it, and I like theories, and I constantly think about shit. Because I still do podcasts quite often. I do a couple a week at least, and so I'm still able to think about stuff. But I had to quit listening to them, because some of them, man, like, you can get into a real dark place where you're just like, what the fuck, man? Like, what is this even all about? Like, what are we doing? Like,
I think my autism saves me, because I'm able to I'm able to go deep and look at something, and I'm like, fuck, that's fucked up. But I'm looking at it from like a bird's eye view, looking down at it. You know what I mean? It's like, right. I'm able to fucking keep my sanity because I'm already insane or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Well, I think also just like, it's one thing to be depressed about something for a while, but you can't just stay in that state, because I think that. Like, if you black pill yourself, like, that's the whole, everything that's fucked up, it's being done just to black pill us. So if we black pill ourselves, and it's like.
Yeah, and that's a dark place to be. If I was single with no kids,
yeah.
Who knows what I would be doing?
I feel you on that.
Yeah, I got people to protect. I got, people to provide for. And so I try to just keep it between the lines and moving forward.
Exactly, man. So. And honestly, for me, agorism also is like, we are focused on solutions. We're like, all right, we see this coming, so what can we do to get around it? And honestly, dude, I was getting blackpilled there for a minute. I was really kind of, and then we have Sal come on every once in a while, and
the agorist.
Yeah, he fucking white pills the shit out of us, dude. Like, he'll just go on. And, yeah, Sal's great, man. And he's absolutely right, dude, because like that was like one thing that like we were talking about. We were like, what's the difference between an ANCAP and an agorist? And like, and an agorist is like an ANCAP, sorta, except that we're like the next evolution up. Like, we're like, okay, so we see the state and we see what they're doing. Like, and agorists we're solution oriented. We're like, and so every new fucking tyrannical law is an opportunity for us.
Right.
We're like, okay, we can make some money doing it,
Yeah, it's all about.
You're going to take menthol cigarettes from us? All right, well, we're making menthols. We're selling them on the street.
Yep. There's always ways around stuff, finding a community and getting people to trade with and do things with is always really, really key. We've recently met up with some people that we homeschool their kid now, at least 3 or 4 days a week, sometimes 5. And they're, at least the wife is all about, getting stuff from farmers markets and getting, out of the system. And like, she's hardcore, man. She makes all her own shit. Her kid is unvaccinated, like our youngest. And she doesn't do any processed foods. Like, she only drinks raw milk. Like,
that's awesome, man.
Like, she provides us all of her kids' food because she doesn't want anything processed, no fucking GMOs, no bullshit. So she wants 100% control over kids' food, and I get it. I get
totally.
it. Like, and that's like, when we met her, I told my wife, I was like, these are the people we need to be networking with. These are the people that we need to make sure we're friends with when the fucking lights go out. Like, so
I mean, and that's really all it comes down to, is trying to make connections and trying to get to know your neighbors. And I mean, we just moved out here. Me and my wife, we were in like we weren't in Portland proper, but we were like basically in the city. We were like in the outskirts of the city, and we moved about like 45 minutes out of the city, and we bought a house out in kind of rural Oregon, and did our property taxes are way lower. We got a little house with a nice little chunk of land on it. And
fuck yeah, dude, that's the way to go. And it's a growing trend. So, I think it's I think the veil is coming down. We were talking about the 100 monkey theory yesterday, and how once enough people can see, and once enough people reach higher vibrations, man, it's just going to lift everybody else. It's the old saying, rising tide raises all ships. And so eventually we're going up, but we're going to pull them up with us. So
I think you're right. I think that the people who aren't seeing it for what it is right now, they're putting themselves in this like psychotic state, because you need to do that not to see it.
Right.
And I think that's why there's so much mental illness in the world right now. Not everyone who's schizophrenic is going through this, but like, there are so many people who are just blue pilled, and they're fucking crazy, they're miserable, they're neurotic, and it's just because they do not want to see.
Fear is a motherfucker, man. There's one of the books, I forget which book it is, but in the Dune series of books, there's a phrase that they say. It says, fear is the mind killer, because fear will literally melt your brain. And when you're stuck in fear for a certain period of time, it's almost impossible to get out of it. Like, it's really, really hard to break out of that fear mindset. And so these people that are still double masking, that are, getting 6-7 fucking shots at this point in time and getting tested all the time, these people live in this miserable hellscape of fear that they've completely fabricated for themselves. But, and I felt sorry for them for a while, but I don't anymore. Because Jesus, like, how are you still there, dude? Like, seriously, like, what data are you looking at? And it's this protection of ego, like
that's part of it.
Yeah,
that's part of it. And I mean, the other part of it too is how they interact with each other. There's like this, especially out here, dude. Like, I mean, you're near Austin-ish, right? So, I mean, I'm sure you have Austin, that fucking, you understand that too. Cause like we're in a West Coast bubble, or I mean, Tony moved out, fucking Tony's on the East Coast now, but he was out here in Portland. But like, we get stuck in this West Coast bubble, dude, where we think that like everyone thinks the same. Like, these fucks, man, to me, it's fucking tragic. It's like this, they have to be a decent person. If they aren't boosted, then it's this weird collective mindset. And it's you're out of the club too.
Right. I think it's more about virtue signaling than it is anything else. Like, I saw something online the other day, and it was this guy that was like, look, these people are going to double down on this because, if they admit they're wrong, they're going to have to admit that they hurt other people and that they were engaging in dangerous behavior. And I'm like, no.
They hurt their kids too, man.
They don't care. They don't care about any of that shit. They don't actually care, and they prove it in their actions because they never even fucking thought about this shit. So they've already proven by their actions that they don't care about other people. They don't care about the children because they did zero fucking research. What they care about is their ego. And so they have gone along with this because of their ego. They're staying in it because of their ego. They don't give a fuck who they're hurting. They just don't want to hurt themselves and their own ego. It's a narcissistic self-protection mechanism. That's it. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's rough, man. I've had a couple friends recently that held out for a long time and then ended up doing it recently. And I was like, a couple of those people, it fucking hurts when you like, especially the ones that I've had these conversations with, and I'm like explaining it to them and they fucking get it. Like, well, I had a coworker too that like he was double jabbed like every other idiot out here is. And we've had these conversations and I've been fucking red pilling him like little by little by little every fucking day. And then he just went and got his fucking booster, dude. And I'm just like, I at first I was like, what the fuck? And then I asked him why. And he's just like, I already had gone that far, man. And like, if I didn't do it, I would have lost, you lose your place in the pack. Right. People would be like, why didn't you get your booster? You're not boosted yet? Why? It's this, you might as well be wearing a MAGA hat at that point.
Yep. Yeah, there's going to be a term thrown around real soon if it's not already being a coined term, and that is under-vaccinated. If you're just not up on your boosters, if you got all like 6 but not the 7th one, you're a fucking piece of shit. You might as well not have gotten any of them because you're part of the problem. Even though, I mean, like, there's no evidence to back up this fucking insanity, this paranoia, like that's all it is. It's paranoia, and it's been done on purpose. So, feel bad for them if you want, but I don't, because you stupid sons of bitches should have seen this shit well before it even hit. Like I never fell for it, not once. This whole narrative, like I'm just like, what is going on? Why is everybody freaking out? Were y'all not paying attention for the past like 40 years? Like, have you not seen this slow progression to this point and how they've tried to do different fucking viruses every few years for the past 40 damn years? Like, what the hell, man? Like,
see, I think why I might have a little bit more compassion for them is because I know, well, okay, some of them are just fucking idiot assholes, but quite a few of them, man, like myself, I was barely fucking normie. Like, as far as like, I was a truther as far as like 9/11. I was a truther as far as all these other bullshit. But like, to me, I was like, well, vaccines are good for you. I mean, it's just like, I just thought that was the fuck. Like my first son, I was a good Christian boy, and I was like, well, I mean, you're supposed to get circumcised, so I got my son circumcised. He got every goddamn jab that he was supposed to, and like on time, and the whole fucking thing. And luckily, he's healthy, and as far as I can tell, he's neurotypical, and he's healthy, and he's fine. There were, I mean, I'm sure there were some ill effects, but whatever. But dude, this whole thing really fucking woke me up. I got lucky, man. I was listening to, like, I was your normie libertarian, I guess, man. I was listening to like Pete Quinonez's show, and then from there he had Richard Grove on, and Richard Grove red pilled the fuck out of me. From there I found like the Corbett Report, I found Media Monarchy, I found like the Propaganda Report, like all those guys, and little by little, like I fucking got it. My little baby here, he's uncut. He's fucking intact. He doesn't have a single fucking jab. He's healthy and happy and smart and growing. And
does he have a birth certificate?
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know how to get out of that one because we were
home birth, brother.
Yeah. I mean,
home birth.
I think the next ones are probably going to be at home. Is, that was funny. I've been, I was talking to people. It was like, they're trying to get me to get him shots, and I'm telling them that I don't want him to have a social security number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Like my next kid, like I feel bad because both of my sons, my biological sons, they have shots. I was wise enough at the time that I got them their shots. I was like, hey, we can't just give them the batteries, where it's just fucking 15 doses in one shot. Like I at least was wise enough at the time that I was like, okay, we're spreading this shit out. Like we're not doing this all at once, because I know that's when there's a buildup, and then the body can't filter it out, and that's when shit can go bad, is when they get them all at the same time. So I spread them all out, but luckily, I stopped vaccinating my oldest son at 6. My youngest son right now got his last vaccine when he was like 4, and it wasn't something I was on board with at the time. He's 5, almost 6 now. And when his mom and I had already separated, and she got him the shot, and I was like, dude, what the fuck, man? Like, it was and it was like another MMR or Tdap, and I was like, he already got those. Yeah. Like, why is he getting them again? Like, he just got those like 3 years ago. Why is he getting it? Why does he have to get them again? Like I already knew he didn't need to get them, but I was trying to logically wake her up. Like, look, he's already had these. Like, this is dumb.
Yeah, that was a big part of my first. I mean, my oldest here is because he was with, when I was a teenager, and his mom at the time was, she was normie as shit. So I'm lucky. My wife now is she's brilliant. She's smart. She knows this shit.
Sweet. Yeah, dude, I can't wait. Our next kid is going to be uncircumcised, home birth, no birth certificate, no social security, natural born sovereign citizen, never being tied to the government ever. And just fuck you. like, nah, you don't get any part of this child. Fuck off. Like, we're
Amen, brother.
So, yeah, man. Tying yourself to the government is the worst thing you can do. So hopefully y'all pay attention in the next year. It'll be in the next year. I've got to get through a custody battle, because right now I'm up against my youngest son's mom in a custody battle that is going to be a doozy, and it's going to cost a shitload of money. But I'm going after judges. I'm going out. Like, I'm not doing this, I'm altering orders bullshit. I'm going for judges that made improper rulings. I'm doing what's called a writ of mandamus against a judge that his order was fraudulent and against his oath. And so hopefully I can make some judges' fucking heads roll, get them kicked off. That's good, man.
I've been there. I've been there with you, man. I had to fight for my oldest. Like, when he was little. Dude. Especially in California, dude, and especially where we were at, like, his mom started doing drugs, and they didn't give a shit. And then she was like breaking and entering and doing some shit. They didn't give a shit. Like, she was getting arrested every couple of weeks. They didn't give a shit. They were like, you've got a dick. She's got a pussy. She's got the baby. And I just had to fight her. And eventually she started using harder drugs, and anyways, long story short, I've had him full physical and legal custody since he was 18 months.
Nice.
So good job, he's been mine.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Man, the family court systems are such a sham. It's so insane. The disrespect good fathers get is madness, because they paint us all as the cokehead drug dealing piece of shit father. The worst of the worst they've ever seen. Everybody gets viewed through that lens.
Yeah.
And the
best judges, mother they've ever seen is the one is the way they judge them.
Yeah, and it's just it's the exact opposite with the mom.
But we're living in a patriarchy, Moral Bob.
Yeah, by what measure? That's what I want to know. If we're living in a patriarchy, by what fucking measure is it a patriarchy? I'd like to know that. And if there's some white privilege, could somebody fucking deal that shit out to me? Because I must have gotten skipped. I don't think I went to the meeting that day or something. But they passed over me with that white privilege shit. Maybe it's because I got freaking Native American blood in me and they didn't like it.
Oh shit, man! Just recently, I fucking appeared on my buddy's show. We read this terrible book called White Fragility. You know, we did a fucking critique of Robin DiAngelo's book. Jesus Christ!
Oh, that sounds terrible. Like torture.
I read it twice.
Oh, good God!
Terrible.
Just glutton for punishment.
I got 10 pages in. It's like, no.
Yeah, I couldn't, dude. I hate that shit so much when they have to do that I couldn't even watch Dave Chappelle's new freaking special. I was like 5 minutes in and he's just like smashing on white people and like, I'm black and rich. And it's just like, dude, oh, I'm done. Like, you're not even funny anymore, dude.
It's funny to see the fight that's really like arising right now between like black leftists and gay leftists, because they try to say we're all one big rainbow and we're all united, but those two don't like each other, man. Like I was listening, or I was on Twitter today, and like somebody was throwing out like some controversial tweets from Whoopi Goldberg, because like this isn't the first time that she and dude, one of them was like gays stole Black History Month from black people and made it gay or something like that, and I was like, based.
Well, the secret is when you look at the left, they are exactly what they claim they're not, and so they are the most hateful, intolerant group of people that you will ever come across. They just work really hard at pretending they're not. That's it. They don't tolerate anybody. They don't accept anybody. They hate everybody, including themselves, no matter
especially
what group
themselves.
Yeah, no matter what group they belong to. Like, they're just garbage.
The first time I saw like chinks in the armor, as far as, because I used to be a good little progressive.
See, that was racist.
I used to be a little Bernie Sanders, but I used to hang out with my, because I was a chef and I was in the Portland area, so I knew lots of like gay line cooks and stuff. And my chef was gay, and then my other chef was a lesbian. And listening to them talk shit about each other was the funniest fucking thing. And like all of the lesbians that I'd hang out with would shit all over the gay guys and vice versa. And they're like, my lesbian friends were like, yeah, those fucking fags. Look at those twinks. I was like, I thought you guys were all together.
Nope.
Yeah, and they're all sitting there, like sitting back, like sipping whiskey, and then like my gay friends are ordering like strawberry daiquiris, and it's funny watching them pretend to be each other. And
no, it's all fake for acceptance. I think most of that culture is just to kind of have some fringe thing about you and make everybody accept you.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are definitely clearly gay, but some of them are also, I think it's like, it's definitely like a way to have a personality if you don't have one.
Right.
Like,
yeah, I saw a tranny the other day at a taco shop, and I said, that's a dude that was uninteresting and got no attention. And so he decided to become a chick.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then there are the crazy ones, man, that just are what they are. And like,
sure.
I've known a lot of those guys too. Yeah, there's some clear mill too. They're fun too, man. Like I was like, my best friend's gay, like grew up with him. So we'd go out to the gay bars. I'd go out with him, and dude, the wild shit that we'd see, those people are fucking nuts, man. But they're fun.
Well,
they're fucking fun.
Sure.
You're doing like, oh man, one night we were doing fucking lines of coke in a graveyard, drinking margaritas with a bunch of trannies. And it was just wild, man. They were fucking putting Molly up their ass and doing all kinds of crazy shit. It was like, well, this is interesting.
Well, it's all part of the depravity of culture and society.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
like,
before
it was done to us intentionally.
It really has, man. And it really is like a degrading of the culture and a degrading of like the whole moral system. Like they have to destroy morals. And I mean, as I've gotten older, I've personally, I've come back to Jesus Christ. Like I'm a Christian now, and like I don't do any of those things any longer. But you know, I still love those people. I still wish the best for those people, but I don't participate, and I don't, you know, I can't really even really hang out with them anymore.
Yeah, I look at stuff like that, and I go, you know, I used to be in that, and if
Yeah.
I could have a talk with my younger self, I'd fucking slap myself in the face and be like, bro, snap out of it, you dumbass. There's so much more important shit you could be doing.
Yeah.
But, you know,
I
it was
wasted
fun.
a
I got some
lot of
good
my
stories.
years. Yeah, I got some great ones, man.
I got
One
some
of these
great
days,
stories.
I'll talk about doing some coke with an ex-Portland mayor with some black strippers.
Nah,
Which mayor?
Well, I'm not. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, that's an interesting story.
Dude, that's what I lived for in my early 20s. I was just like, let's get wild. Like, this is how I used to start my nights, man, because I was working graveyard shifts at this one restaurant, this 24-hour spot. And so, like, Monday nights were like karaoke night at this bar called the TARDIS Room. It was like a Doctor Who themed bar. I was probably like 22, 23. And like how we would start the night is like I would take like a fucking eighth of shrooms, and then I would down 2 4 Locos, and then we would jump on the metro. We'd jump on the Max, and we'd head down to the bars, and that was pregame, and then it got weird.
I'm impressed that you could find your way out of that bar in that state. Okay, so if you're not familiar with that bar, there's like 20 rooms in it.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a fun bar to go into, but like you get lost easily.
Wow. I've done some crazy shit, but I mean, I don't know.
That was just a Monday night, man.
Yeah. I've done 10 hits. We used to do 10 strips in an evening. You know, acid was huge in the early 90s. So, you know, we would buy pages of acid and knock it out in a weekend. Between like 5 of us, and just get fucking crazy with shit. And it was fun, man. There was a lot of insane shit that happened. We went to the Blair Witch Project when it came out, and we went there, and I don't remember if we were tripping or not, but we went in with a joint. And it was like opening night, so it was fucking packed. And we went in trying to find a seat. There were like 3 or 4 of us, and we couldn't find 4 seats together. And so we just went and sat at the back of the theater and lit up a joint and started passing it back and forth in the theater, watching the movie. And as soon as we got done with the joint and flicked it down like the seats in front of us, a fucking sheriff walked in like right when we flicked the joint out, and he was like, y'all need to find a seat, and we were like, okay, and we just scattered. Just super fucked up, just got done blazing. Man, I could tell stories all day about the 90s, dude. That was a wild time. So we'll have to get together one of these days and just have old freaking story time about the 90s. The 90s were a blast, man. Like, it was a free for all then, you know.
Dude, the 90s were a different time, man. I was pretty young, but the 90s were a fucking different time, dude. It was happy go lucky. It was free, man. I still remember what what fucking flights were like before 9/11.
Yeah,
dude,
and there was
show up and
drugs were everywhere. Everywhere. It was so easy to get anything you wanted. Anything you wanted. If you wanted heroin, coke, meth, dude, I had a guy that, because I grew up in a small town called College Station, where the Texas A&M is, and there was this dude that was like some engineer student at Texas A&M. He drove a little yellow Beetle. I'll never forget it. I forget the dude's name, but he drove a yellow Bug. And I could call him at any time, any day, and I could give him a grocery list of shit. I'd be like, I need 2 pages of acid. I need 10 hits of ecstasy. I need an 8-ball. I need a 1/4 ounce of weed. And I need fucking 12 grams of shrooms. And he'd be like, all right, I'll be there in 30 minutes. And
Yep.
they just show up, just there you go. Like, fuck.
Those are the guys to know, man. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it was awesome. It was fantastic. I'd just make one phone call and I could have anything I wanted within 30 minutes. It was great.
I remember when I was a young teenager. Oh, this is back in, my hometown's Eureka, California. So I'm from Humboldt County. So
Nice.
we had some serious fucking weed. And there was one guy that I got to know, little Asian dude, and him and his little buddies, dude, they were like, this is fucked up. But they were crop thieves. And so like they would be waiting, they'd wait until somebody's fucking crop was like ready to go. They go in with guns, take everything, go. And so they were trying to get rid of it real quick. So they'd always call me up and give me a fucking deal, dude. They were selling me ounces for like, dude, $80 back in the day. And that was a fucking deal back in the day.
Yeah. Like
I was like 14 years old sitting on fucking pounds of weed. Like
of good Cali
times,
weed.
Man. Good Cali weed.
We were in Texas. We didn't get that good Cali weed until the late 90s, early 2000s, man. What we got was that brick weed.
Dude,
from
America didn't
Mexico.
even, like, the rest of America didn't know what good weed was until, like, maybe, like, 10 years ago? Well, maybe it's been more
Probably
like 15, 20 now, yeah.
20, yeah, give or take. It was right around 2000, early 2000s, where it was Kind Bud. It was Kind. I got some Kind. And
yeah.
that was the good shit that was from the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
It was Kind. Because, yeah, all we had was just shaky bullshit fucking swag from Mexico when I was growing up. And so you'd roll blunts with that shit and just get high as fuck. And
I didn't realize how good I had it, you know, especially back then, dude. I was spoiled as shit.
Yeah, border states got brick weed, man.
Yeah, I'd go out of town and I'd visit people. Like, even in Sacramento, like, the rest of Northern California didn't have the same weed, man. I'd smoke somebody else's weed. I'd be like, this is shit. This is garbage.
People would come back from either Colorado or California, and I'd make sure it'd be like, hey, bring me back some of that good stuff.
Yeah, just find some hippies. I mean, that's...
Well, that was the saddest part, man, because, like, I used to be able to hang out. There's this little college town in Humboldt County called Arcata, and there's this little place called the Plaza, and it's like this little, like, square where all the hippies would hang out, and it was chill as fuck, dude. And there was hobos, and then there was actual hippies, and then just weirdos and artsy leftist freaks and weirdos, and you could just go to anyone and just fucking find the best weed in the world. And then, like, by the time I left, it's been over a decade, they had just, like, put in a flight, like a direct flight from Los Angeles to Arcata, like to the Arcata airport. And then you started seeing, like, actual fucking thugs and shit. Like, there was, like, dummies that thought they were gangsters and stuff out there. I was probably one of them when I was in high school. But then there actually was, like, full on fucking thugs out there, dude. And, like, I remember I bought some weed from one of the hippies, and, like, this black dude was, like, shaking down the hobos. And, like, he was collecting tax because he owned the plaza now. So every time they would have to sell some weed, like, I saw that the price had jumped, and I was like, what the fuck's up? Because these guys were having to, like, I think they were giving like 25%, 30, 40%, whatever their fucking sales were to these dudes. And it's shitty, man. That's when it started going downhill. As soon as they started those, like, direct flights from LA, because it was almost like a little hidden enclave, because it's really far north up there. Like, they would have to I mean, there was dudes from LA, but they're going to have to take a fucking drive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, fucking
it's all downhill from there.
The good old days, man.
Now California's a fucking cesspool, dude.
Dude, California
used to be worse.
Cool. Everything used to be cool as shit, though.
So how do we recreate the 90s? How do we do this?
We're working on it. Well, dude, honestly, I'd rather go back to, like, the 50s. What I tell people is, like, the 50s and 60s without all the racism would be great, because music was good, the cars were fucking cool, like, women were curvaceous and men had respect, and like your word meant something, and, like, shit was awesome. back in the 50s and 60s, dude. That time was badass, man. The clothes were cool. The
clothes
culture
were
was
fucking cool.
Like everything was cool back then. So,
dude, and people were fucking educated back then too. Like you could be a plumber, but you would fucking have read the classics.
Right.
You know what I mean? You would have fucking you knew the classics. You'd read at least,
people
and,
read.
Yeah.
People
They don't
read back then. And people don't now. People read headlines and Facebook posts. People don't read books. People don't try
the younger audience doesn't even do that, man. Yeah. They're not even on Facebook and Twitter. They're on TikTok. They saw TikTok about it. So they can
when I see an adult that's like, "Oh, I saw this TikTok video," I'm just like,
pedo. That's the first thought I get is like, anytime I see an adult male my age that's on TikTok, I'm like, there's something wrong with you. Like, it's
like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, I'll watch YouTube videos on how to do something, but I ain't on TikTok. Like, I have been sent some TikTok videos where I'm like, okay, there's some people trying to wake people up on TikTok. So
they really are, man. There are some people doing some good work on there. My son will actually be the one to show me and stuff. Like, he came to me actually not that long ago. He goes, "Man, I think the Earth might be flat, Dad. I've heard this, this, and this." I was like, "That's interesting. I'm talking to a guy later this week." So
yeah, tell your son everything is parallel.
So let's get. So I don't know how much more time you got. We're over an hour, but can we talk a little bit of the ice wall? Can we talk a little bit?
Sure.
Like, tell me. I'm curious about, because I know there's different flavors, different like theories as far as like flat Earth goes. Do you think are we like? Is there a fucking globe over us? Like,
I lean towards a firmament. What I've started thinking about lately is my theory on the firmament is that it is possibly the abyss that the fallen were cast into. So the biblical narrative is that the fallen angels were cast into the abyss for 1,000 years by God, and they were sent there kind of as a rehabilitation center. So I'm under, of course it's all theories. I can't prove any of this shit, but it's just a preponderance of evidence and a lot of fucking thinking. When these narratives say that, and it's the Septuagint, it's the ancient Hebrew writings that say that, they kind of use the same terms where it's the fallen were cast into the abyss. And people think that that's like broadcasted, like thrown into the abyss. Well, I think they were cast like you would cast a sculpture or you would cast your arm. It contains something. And so I think they were cast into the abyss, and maybe the abyss is the firmament, and we are just projections of those fallen onto this realm, and this is the rehabilitation center. And we are projections of those souls or whatever that are in the firmament. But as far as
are we the fallen angels? Is that what you're saying?
Possibly, yes.
I was just thinking that when you were talking about that, I was like, what if we were the fucking fallen angels and we didn't even know it?
Yeah, I think
we're the demons. I mean, humanity has only shown that we're capable of some pretty fucking dark shit.
Well, we're insanely powerful beings, and our power is stifled constantly through spraying, through chemicals in our food and our toothbrush and toothpaste, and literally everywhere we're poisoned. And I think it's to keep us low vibration, to keep us from being able to be what we're supposed to be. Like, I even think we can fly, because I think we're just projections. So Tesla said that if you want to figure out this realm, you have to think in frequency, vibration, and energy. And everything is a vibration, right? Like my voice reaching your ears right now, all I'm doing is making sound waves that are causing vibrations in this microphone right here that are then being transported to your ears, and it's being put into a speaker that is repeating those vibrations. So everything is a vibration. Light is a vibration. Sound is a vibration. Eyesight that we see is a vibration. It's our eyes are picking up vibrations, and our brain is translating them. So everything is about vibration. So all we have to do is figure it out, and we can read people's thoughts. We can fly. We can teleport. We can do all of this stuff. I truly believe that we can. I think Jesus, if he was a real person, he was just a messenger to tell us what we're capable of, because he walked on water. He healed the sick. He made the blind see. He turned water into wine, and he told us that we will do greater things than he has done.
Yeah.
So I think he was more possibly just, not necessarily the son of God, but just a messenger.
And I do think he was the son of God, but
So,
but I mean,
I
think
have
about
no proof either way. So,
yeah, neither do I. But what I do find fascinating too, though, is like, let's say that I mean, because all of what you just said about Jesus is true, and that is the filtered version that we've gotten.
Right.
So
that's the
which is
fairy
really
tale
fascinating.
book that you get when you're a kid.
Yeah, that's the scrubbed version.
Yeah, that's the Sunday school version of it all. So
I'm really curious of what was taken out, and like
you can read like the Ethiopian Bible still has the book Enoch in it, and maybe one other book, I think. But you really got to go way beyond. People that are reading the King James Bible and taking it for full cloth, it's like you're missing a lot. You need to go to the Septuagint. You need to go to the ancient texts.
What the hell is a Septuagint?
It's the ancient texts of what the Bible has come from. Because the Bible is a culmination of a bunch of different things that were found. So, you got the Dead Sea
a lot
Scrolls.
of it is word of mouth and stories, right? That were written into the Torah and.
It was basically written mostly off of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and then the ancient Sumerian tablets, and there was a lot of ancient Hebrew scripts, and they just kind of collected it all into the Bible. So people act like it was something that was handed down by God himself, and it's like, no. This was a collection of stories written by men that was just put all together.
I think anyone serious says it was inspired story. They were inspired by God.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been. It could have been inspired by something that was perceived as a god. Again.
Well, I mean, I'm even willing to consider, like, because like the more I've done research into like Saturn. I mean, Yahweh is probably Saturn. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But this is all.
I'm going to go worship Saturn tomorrow.
So if you go, like you said, the ice wall, there's some maps you can look at that show realms outside of ours. Excuse me, outside of ours, outside of the ice ring. There's other lands, and there's one that's like Terra de Mara, which is land of Mars. There's I forget. I was on a show on Tuesday, and he had a map pulled up, and it was really awesome. But it's the outer space. It's the space outside of our realm is what outer space is.
Interesting.
So things that we see that are UFOs or aliens could just be creatures from outside of our realm. That I give a little bit of credit to the infinite plane theory, because who knows? It could go on forever. It could go on relatively forever. But then there's some maps that show realms like ours, in our 3 surrounding realms, and then and that's like a bubble, right? But inside of our bubble, there's like 3 or 4 realms, and so there's that bubble, and then there's another bubble next to it that's got a couple realms in it, and another one, but there's like 13 of them on these maps. And so that could be the 13 royal bloodlines, are bloodlines from each one of those realms, and they're all controlling and interbreeding with each bloodline. Are they actual reptilians from other realms, or is that just an allegory? Who knows?
Yeah.
Are they all humanoids? Maybe, maybe not. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's all theory, right? It's all theory based on shit that I've heard, things that I've researched, things I've looked into. And so I just form these ideas because, like I said, I know some things, and then the rest of my shit is all just theories and ideas based on research. And the things that I know, that I claim that I know, are only things that I can prove. And that's like this much.
Totally.
So I can prove this realm is flat, but what is this realm? Like, is it a simulation? Is it a projection of another realm?
Do you have any? So let's speculate here. Do you have any theories? Like, what are aliens, man?
What's
your thoughts on that?
I just think aliens are possibly from other realms, either outside of our realm or possibly from the ocean. I think there could be oceanic realms that we don't know about because we know nothing about the oceans. Like, there's so much undiscovered land in underwater that we have no idea what could be under there, and they tell us everything, right? So the recent Aquaman movie, there's Atlantis is sunk and under the ocean, which and then there's a lot of shows and movies and stuff like that. So I think there definitely could be something to what is it? It's we talked about it early. Fucking Jar Jar Binks, isn't it his realm underwater? So they tell us this shit all the time, and they tell us for a reason. So I think there definitely could be underwater realms as well, and maybe that's what aliens are. Maybe aliens are time travelers, and they're they're us from either a previous time or a future time. That are teleporting here either to tell us a message or track our progress or something.
Or come back and control and change the future
and try to, very butterfly effect type shit, where they're coming back to change a single thing to alter the future. And maybe that's why we have Mandela effect.
Hey, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. Where things just shift and change.
Yeah. Where you're like, no. I remember this shit because I was on a podcast recently and they were like, John Madden died. And I was like, John Madden died like fucking 10 years ago. And they're like, no, they didn't. He just died the other day. And I was like, no. Like, I have a specific memory of John Madden dying, and I played John Madden that day in remembrance of John Madden. Like, I have a specific fucking memory of this happening. And they were like, nah, he just died like 2 days ago. And I was like, what the fuck? And somebody I was on the panel with was like, yeah, he died like 10 years ago. I was like, see, somebody else remembers. Like, they just went back and messed with stuff a little bit, and a couple of us still fucking remember, and then it's just called Mandela effect.
It's wild, man. And sometimes how much do you think is that a psychological trick too, though? I mean, I bet, like, how, in 1984, war is peace, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Like, do you think that they like reintroduce things and kind of just fuck with it a little bit just to see if we'll buy it, and just like, I mean, because I was thinking about those psychological tests that they did some experiments that they had run, and like I'll try to give you guys an example. So it's like there's like 8 people in a room, and one guy walks up to the other one and punches him, and there's one person that isn't in on this, right? She's the test subject,
right?
And so the control guy comes back and says, "Hey, what happened?" And then everybody points to the dude that got punched and said, he punched that guy. And so you see this lady, she's trying to figure it out in her head, and she just goes, and then they ask her, is that what happened? And she's like, yes. Right. and you see it and you watch it in real time, and then and she probably changed the memory in her head. She goes, oh yeah, that's what happened, I guess.
Right. The group think mentality that you can have, they've done tons of studies about this where they've had controlled groups and they've entered one person that isn't in the controlled group and seen what happens. There was a really big one that went around a few years ago of some guy that came in, and he first kind of started saying like, no, that's not how it happened. But then, like, as people would talk about it, he just completely was just like, oh, well, I guess, okay, well, yeah, okay, I guess I am wrong, and then
what's fascinating too is like there was a small percentage of people that they'd be like, no, that's not what happened. Mm-hmm. But it was a really small percentage. And I wonder if that's us.
Yep,
we're that small percentage.
Right. And then it comes down to, there's been massive amounts of genetic testing in the past handful of years with 23andMe and, all of this stuff. And then through COVID testing, there's been this mass testing scale. What are they trying to find? Like, are they trying to find the ones that won't go along? Are they trying to go find the ones that, is it a genetic marker that makes us the way we are? Or is it, is it something they could find genetically? And that's what they're trying to do?
So you could call it cultural, you could call it whatever you want, but whatever you want to call it as far as like the nature nurture argument, right? But to be honest with you, dude, like I have a brother that my mom had to give up for adoption when she was a teenager, and we didn't find him again until like I was probably 15 or something like that, and I got to meet my brother. Me and him are so goddamn similar. Like every man in my family are very fucking similar in the ways that we are very anti-authority. Like he's a fucking libertarian. His kids are not fucking vaccinated. He's on awesome. Fucking point. And like it just happens to be that way. And like my son is very fucking militantly anti-authoritarian. Just like if you're trying to tell him some bullshit, you better have a good reason why. You have to come with him with logic and evidence, and then he'll take your fucking word for it and be like, okay. But if you don't, he'll tell you to go fuck yourself.
Right.
And that's my genes right there. That's my little mini me. It's just, I think it is a genetic thing.
There's got to be something about it with genetics. And that's why they want to jab everyone. They want to force everybody to jab because it's a genetic modification.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And also like the military, the way that they're weeding them out.
Mm-hmm. We've talked about them resetting history. Mm-hmm. There's a very valuable phrase that you have to remember. The meek shall inherit the earth. So they want to just do away with the strong and leave only the meek, and then they reset it, and the meek are easy to mold and manipulate.
So I've heard at least arguments that meek is not the way we think it is. So meek, at least like the meek will inherit the earth, is like it's saying that they're peaceful, but they choose to be peaceful. It's like we're dangerous. Like I have a sword and I could kill you, and I choose not to.
Touche.
So meek has a different meaning than we do here now. So the meek are like the ones that have self-control, the ones that aren't.
It could just be an inversion. It could be yet another inversion. But by our textbook definition of meek, it is easily manipulated, easily moldable, the ones that'll go along. That's what the meek are. The meek are the people that will just go along. The go along to get along crowd. That's what it is to me.
Another thing that I saw that was really fucking fascinating, and obviously they're doing this sort of shit, but like I just fucking read an article about it that like I think it might just be people in the federal government, but I think it might be just people in general, people that have been filing for religious exemptions. They're collecting a database of every single motherfucker that put in a religious exemption. And
it's like Mao's grievance roll. Like, like they're just, if you put yourself on a list, then they know where to find you.
Yeah, dude, I'm so glad I didn't do that. I got close. I was going to do it. And
I know a lot of people that have fucking gotten CHLs, concealed handgun license and all of this shit. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing that?
Yeah, that's like, fucked, dude. They do the FBI check on you. And
I'm just like, man, fuck that shit. I don't, like, where do you think they're going to get their list from? Like, if they're going to round up guns, they're going to start with the people that they know have guns.
Yeah.
Like all my
guns. It's why if I carry, I open carry.
Yeah, dude. I don't hide my shit, dude. I got a shoulder holster and I just wear that shit loud and proud. Like,
well, see, Texas is, I guarantee you guys have better gun laws than fucking Oregon does.
Not up until recently, dude. Only since September have we had constitutional carry. Like it's been brand new.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys could carry swords before you guys could carry guns, huh? I remember hearing that. I thought that
you
was
could
pretty
carry a
fucking
long
badass.
rifle. Like it was okay to carry a long rifle. because that falls under different rules. But as far as handguns go, you could not open carry, and you had to have a license to open carry. And even with concealed carry, you had to have a license to conceal carry. And like, it was a bunch of shit. We just got freaking constitutional carry. But you know, I take my gun with me all the time anyway, so fuck them. I don't follow their rules. Their rules have no power over my actions. So, as Thomas Jefferson said, when tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty. So, like, fuck them.
Yeah, I feel that, man.
I refuse to do things out of fear. Like, I'm just not going to. You don't get to manipulate me through fear. Like, like, I'm just gonna do me, and I do me. I mean, I don't register my vehicles, and instead I have a Texas Penal Code book where my registration goes. Like, you're supposed to have a sticker, and I just have a Texas Penal Code book stuck right in my window. So when a cop looks over at my car to see my registration, he sees a Texas Penal Code book and knows I know my shit and leaves me alone. And for the most part, it works.
I like that a lot, Moral Bob. I gotta do more research when it comes to being sovereign and not. Yeah,
dude, know your laws. like even before you're able to become sovereign, if you know the laws, like most of what the government do is illegal by their rules. So if you know the rules they're supposed to play by, then you can call them out all the time. Like, you can tell them to fuck off by their own rules. So I have my Texas Penal Code book, and I have Texas Criminal and Traffic Law Manual also that sits in my console. Like, so if I get pulled over, I'm just like nah. Yeah, if you can show me in one of these books where I did something wrong, or where you have the power to stop me from doing what I'm doing, cool, point it out to me. But if you can't, then fuck right off. Like, see you later, dude. Like, I'm not playing your damn game. So yeah, you know, and in Texas, like, if you know your local laws, the cool thing about knowing your local laws is I don't register my vehicles, and I do it completely legally, because Texas law 502.003 states that you don't need to register. What is it? Hold on. No local city or municipality can enforce registration or licensure laws unless you are transporting people for compensation. So now, I think that leaves state troopers out of the loop. So a state trooper could enforce license or registration laws, but your local beat cops can't.
Interesting.
So I roll around unregistered everywhere, and I don't really have to worry about it. I still have a license plate on my truck, which I'm soon going to move. Because I want to make a sticker for my I'm not even going to move it. I'm just going to put a sticker over my license plate that says I do not consent. And just no, I'm not playing this game with you anymore. Like, you can piss right off.
Moral Bob, I wish you luck with that.
Thanks, brother.
Let's put a fucking target on your back.
Yeah, man. I've had a target on my back for a long time. They can come and get me. I kicked a bunch of the local cops. Like, I had a little snafu with the local cops right after I moved into the house I'm in now, and I made 15 to 20 cops with guns drawn kick rocks. I was just like, y'all get the fuck out of here. They kept telling me to go inside or I was going to jail. I was like, no, dude. They wanted to flex their authority on me, and I wasn't having it. Like, no, I'm not gonna. You're gonna shoot me in front of my kids? No, you're not.
Moral Bob, you're lucky you're not black, buddy, because I think you might have got shot.
I don't know. I think that's just a preconceived notion that we have, because cops kill more white people than they kill black people.
They do, yeah,
by a large amount. It's a staggering amount more. It's like 4 times as many. So people that are like, oh, cops are racist and they kill black people. Well, they kill white people 4 times as much. So, I don't know that you could call them racist if black people are not the lead group that they kill. So, and what's weird is when you look into that statistic, is cops kill people at almost exactly their percentage in the population. So white people make up about 60 to 70% of the population, and there's 60 to 70% of the people that get killed by cops. Black people make up about 10 to 12% of the population, and they're about 10 to 12% of the people that get killed by cops. You know,
Yeah.
the
problem is the cops.
The problem is the cops. That's the problem. You know, it's clearly the cops. You know, and I tell people, I'm like, all right, because you know, I've had this conversation with Status, and they're just like, well, you know, the cops come into contact with a lot of people and they're in dangerous situations and blah 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 blah. First of all, cops don't make the top 20 list for dangerous jobs, and second of all,
they fucking act like it.
If you apply the same standard to a private organization, in which I use Walmart, because people say, well, you know, cops kill 1,000 people a year, but they come in contact with millions of people a year, so it's a drop in the bucket. I'm like, okay, fine. Let's go with something that's comparable. Walmart sees a minimum of probably 100 million customers a year, right? Minimum. And if Walmart killed 1,000 people a year, how fast do you think they would go out of business? Like, yeah. Do you think there would be a second year that they killed 1,000 people? Probably.
I don't know. There might be.
Maybe.
Well, they slowly, yeah, and they slowly do.
But they would correct their behavior
with their Krispy Kremes.
Organization is they would see their profits
and
drop.
soda pop.
The thing about Walmart is they would kill 1,000 people, see their profits plummet, and they would immediately change their behavior so their profits would come back up.
How many people die on Black Friday every year?
Right, that's possible, but that's not necessarily
I don't think 1,000
Walmart's
people,
fault.
No,
yeah, that's not necessarily the vendor's fault, though. That's just stupid ass people. So if somebody gets trampled in Walmart, that's not Walmart's fault. That's humans. That's just dirty ass dumb humans. Like, we are the dumbest fucking creatures that have ever graced this world. It's insane.
We're fallen angels, man.
And what's funny is we're getting dumber. We're getting dumber. We're getting weaker. Men are getting less testosterone. Like, we're on this downward trajectory. It's not looking good. But I think we're about to hit the water like a skipping stone and about to bounce right off of it and come back up. But you know, well,
we're the remnant, man. That's why you gotta, I think you gotta have a couple more, Moral Bob. You gotta make the clan.
And I will, man. Like, we try like hell. So it's not for a lack of trying, I can tell you that. So I will probably have a couple more kids, man, and they're going to be natural born sovereign citizens, and they're not going to have to deal with
I tell this to Tony all the time, man. He's got to get hitched and start making babies.
Man, don't look for it though.
Yeah,
I've
she'll
looked
find
for women.
you, Tony.
Yeah, I've looked for women, and that never went right. My wife found me.
It's true, man. It was a time in my life where I had like come back to Jesus. I had started going back to church. I had started like taking care of myself. I had started like changing things about my behavior and like in different things in my life. And that's when my wife met me, man. That's where she found me. You know, we met at church and
yeah, dude, you just got to not look. I had given up on dating. I had given up on everything. And I was sitting at my brother's house and this beautiful bell-bottom wearing girl came strolling in, and the rest, as they say, is history. I was just like, holy shit. I went to my sister-in-law. I was like, dude, you didn't tell me you had hot friends. Like, what the fuck? Like, you've been holding out on me. You know, and that's how it all started. I wasn't even looking. Like, I was done. I was just like, all right, I'm just going to be the bachelor dad. I'm just going to be done dating. Like, I don't care anymore. And she just came in like a fucking hurricane and changed my whole life. So it's been awesome. It's been awesome. And that's what's put me on this trajectory of becoming sovereign and getting out of the city and, you know, having chickens. Like you said, you have chickens, man. Having chickens is one of the greatest things ever, man. Raise chickens, folks. It's awesome.
I'm building a new fucking coop in my backyard tomorrow. So
yeah, I've got that's probably going to be my next weekend project because everything's a little frozen right now. But yeah, I need to upgrade my coop because my chickens they're not real happy in this tiny ass little coop that I got them. There's 15 of them in a coop that can handle, that was supposed to be only able to handle 10.
Yeah.
But they manage. They're fine.
Hey, they cuddle with each other too when it's cold, so they're fine.
Yeah, and it keeps them warm.
Yeah.
Gets warm as shit in there for sure. So anyway, man.
Yeah, I'm
my
right there
wife's-
with you.
My wife, she's bugging. She's
I'm getting
ready.
the text messages too. Everybody's hungry. I got to go make
Yep.
dinner.
All right,
All right.
brother. Well, thanks for having me, man. This has been a goddamn blast, man. We'll have to talk again soon.
Let's do it,
Love
brother. All right. Thank you,
All right,
guys.
All right. Later.
Take care.